Is this thing on? Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Summits Podcast. Thank you for joining us today, whether you are listening in wherever you get your podcasts or joining us on the Heroes Foundation YouTube channel. We appreciate you, so thank you for coming in today. Very powerful episode today, folks. Pretty excited about this one. A little bit change of pace, but I think you guys will feel the impact once we are through this. Would like to welcome Mr. Marshall Morris to the Summits Podcast.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate
Thanks
it.
for being here.
Appreciate you guys.
Marshall, why don't you do everyone a favor, just kind of introduce yourself, give a little background history on where you grew up, where you're from, and what you've done.
So grew up New England, outside Portsmouth, New Hampshire, Kittery, Maine area.
Does that mean you're a Patriots fan?
I was all my life, yes.
Was.
Even when they were terrible. Well,
So you say was now.
Well, all my life, you start to realize, like, I may not make another football season. So you say was because, I'm almost the past tense.
Yeah.
And, grew up there, Italian and English kid. So, got the Italian side, mom, the Catholic Church upbringing and that whole thing. And then dad, the Protestant side. And it's like, you just choose whatever works for you that week, like, oh, this is going to work this week. I'm going to do some Hail Marys and I'm all good, So grew up, typical kid, football, all that stuff. Joined the military, went into the military, saw combat down in Panama when we got Noriega out over in the first Gulf War. And
Which branch were you in?
Army.
Army. Okay.
Yeah. And just I love our soldiers. I'm a very patriotic person. It's just something that's been instilled in me a long, long time. So, did your whole thing, Boy Scout, Eagle Scout, all that stuff all the way up. So you just kind of grow and develop. After that, got out of the military, got into the car business, did very successful in the car business, ran a bunch of stores over the years, ended up here, partnered with Bob Oakley, made them the Second Chance Superstore years ago as Oak Motors, and, sold partnerships with him out and continued to run other stores locally with Fernando Falcon, Champion, and a bunch of other stores. Okay. And decided to step out on my own after, years and doing that. I went out and created Amp Marketing, which was a marketing company that did super sales, event marketing all over the United States. We were the first to do events in Alaska. Okay. So a lot of fun. You just get to meet a lot of different people and go across the United States, and then took that and just went into a little bit more, record label, Amp Entertainment. We had Blessed Union of Souls, Flynnville Train, girl out of Barbados named Melissa Alana. So a lot of fun stuff. Got a lot of chance to meet a lot of people throughout the years, and a couple medical spas that we did, you renewed medical centers, and then the modern rejuvenation centers, and my properties company, Protestus Group, which basically has helped me do everything I'm doing today with my foundation. So
Awesome.
So
varied work life,
yes.
But certainly exciting nonetheless, regardless.
A lot of fun.
You like, sometimes this is one of my Achilles heels. Do you like having multiple balls in the air?
I do.
Doing different stuff?
I do. I just, if it doesn't feel like I'm having a chaotic day, then I don't feel like I'm getting anything done. So,
Yeah.
Yep.
it has to be chaos.
Yeah.
Controlled chaos, but chaos.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. Of the different businesses you just mentioned, and they run the spectrum, and they're not all in one.
Yeah.
No.
It's quite,
one bucket
quite
per
the
se.
range.
Yeah. So as entrepreneurs, what made you decide to do different ones? I mean, there's something sparked an idea, I would assume.
Okay.
And I guess here's a loaded question: any particular one that you preferred over the others?
So the marketing company was easy for me, right?
Okay.
That was just a given. It's basically doing event sales for the car business all over the country. So if you can imagine taking a used car salesman, mixing him with a carny, right? That's what you're taking all over the United States, and you're starting to try to keep these guys under control, right? Like you want them to live the best possible life without affecting everybody else's life that week. Sure. And so, I was big brother to everybody.
Yeah.
I'd pay for their hotel rooms so I could actually go in and monitor the hotel rooms,
Yeah.
Make sure that there was nothing bad in the rooms, and took care of these guys, kept them out of trouble, a week at a time. And then a friend of mine approached me and said, "Hey, you're great at marketing, Marshall. Could you help this band?" And I'm like, "Okay, I've never been in this business, but hey, let's give it a shot. I need a tax write-off anyway, so here we go." And got the opportunity to buy back their music from Toby Keith. They'd been on Toby's label, and everybody was like, they wanted $400,000 for this music, and I'm like, are you crazy?
Yeah.
I'm like, you shelved these guys. So we walk into this meeting, and I'll never forget it. It was just me and my attorney, 6 attorneys, and Toby at the end of the table. And Toby had just come out with this article where he was the $600 million man. Okay. And I'm like, Toby, 600 million? He's like, yeah. I'm like, I remember the $6 million man when I was a kid. I'm like, you're the $600 million man. He's like, yeah. And he's getting all chest puffed out and feeling great. I'm like, my goodness, you must need some tax write-offs. And he's just like, all the time. And I said, what if we just do this at 10% of the value? You write off the other 90% is bad debt. And he's like, that's a great idea. He got up, shook my hand. That was it. His attorney's like, no, we can get more money. And
the attorneys were like, damn.
Yeah.
So it was a great, and so that was my, all of a sudden I'm in the record industry. I'm like, what do we do? And the boys had, from Flynnville, had friends with Richard Young from the Kentucky Headhunters, the head of the Kentucky Headhunters. Their son is Blackstone Cherry. He's an 8-time Grammy Award winning artist. He comes in, he's like, I like this guy. He's going to help you guys out a lot. And he taught me the ropes, and he took me around Nashville, introduced me to a bunch of different people, from a bunch of the old guys like the Mavericks and stuff like that from the old days. And just Raul was signing with Big Machine at the time and coming back out. And I was like, I got a chance to go and see all of this and be involved in all of it. And I was like, this is a really neat thing. I didn't realize that, hey, everybody thinks the car business is bad. Let me tell you, the industry, the entertainment industry, terrible. They'll look you right in the eye and they will lie right to your face, and you'll feel like they just told you the best thing in the world. And, but I learned a lot, met a lot of really interesting people. It'd be the one business I would tell anybody, if you don't want to lose a lot of money, don't go into, right? So it was a great tax write-off for me. And then the medical spas, I just got, it was a great market. It just seemed like it was a fun time. And so we were doing Botox and fillers and hormones and the laser lipos. And I was seeing all these Groupons at the time. And I was like, okay, this is crazy. We should be able to go do this. So I bought a Groupon, went and checked it out. And I said, oh, this is easy. We can do this better, just make it seem more, intensive. So I took all these lasers that these big companies in the United States are trying to sell you for $60,000, $75,000, $80,000. And I took them to Alibaba and I sent them over to China, all the specs. And I started having the same ones made for $1,500, changing them out every year, brand new technology, $1,500 to buy a $75,000 laser that they're trying to sell you in the United States. So I was just like, look, come on, we're getting the same results. We're getting the exact same, specs out of this. By year, 1 year in, it's time to get rid of this. And so that's what it was for us. We do that. It was a lot of fun, but just like anything, the first ship to sink is a partnership, right? So, you can't babysit everybody. And so you get partners sometimes that want to go down a different path. And, maybe this cash didn't really come in today. So I was like, you know what? I can't babysit you. I can't trust you. It's time to go. So I sold that to my partners 2 years ago now, and things have been great. I mean, fantastic. So that I love being an entrepreneur. It's, I realized it takes money to make money.
Sure.
You can have all these great ideas when you're younger, but if you don't have the money to back you, you're never going to get anywhere. And that's something that, as I started making money with AMP marketing, I realized, let me do stuff with this. Let me do some of those ideas that I didn't get a chance to do before. And that's where it was great.
Yeah.
So I love it.
Well, cool. Obviously, if you guys aren't aware, March is Bile Duct Cancer Awareness Month. And with that, Marshall, what is your cancer story?
So my cancer story, well, simple as this, stage 4, currently intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma, which is bile duct cancer. And found this out late July, early August of last year. Thought I was in really good shape. I just leaned out for the summer, and he was trying to cut pretty nicely, and all of a sudden I dropped 38 pounds in a matter of 36 days, and I'm like, okay, something's not right here. Like, hey, I did a great diet, and my supplements are all doing well, but they shouldn't be doing this well. I was down to about 212. Usually like to be in the 228, 230 range for the summer. Usually carry about 236, 238, normally. And I was like, okay, something's not right. I was dealing with some itching. I'm like, maybe I got into something, poison ivy, whatever. I'm looking at my skin, and I had this crazy itching. And I mean, an itching so bad that it would keep you up at night. You'd get an hour to 3 hours a night of sleep. Yeah. And you'd be, those back scratchers. I was ordering them by the dozen because they were breaking. You couldn't get hard enough. And
had you had like poison ivy or things like that?
I've had in the past, yeah.
Trying to compare it to that, and was it like?
It was poison ivy times 10, but like if it was on the inside of the skin.
Yeah.
So it was like just everywhere.
Soothing it kind of thing.
No,
right?
Like you could soothe it with a very hot shower, but when you got out and the pores opened, it was like 10 times worse.
Okay.
So it was crazy. And so I decided, let me go to the VA, get this checked out. And they did some tests, and in a matter of 2 days, they sent me to a liver specialist. And old guy up in Marion, I mean, he looked at he just looked at my charts. He says, I don't even need to look at this any further. He says, it's 70% chance cancer. I'm going to send you down to Indianapolis for an ERCP right now. That's fun where they go down your throat all the way through and come back up and check stuff out. And I'm like, okay. And got that the next day. And it was like stage 4. And they're like, hey, guess what? Stage 4, this is what it looks like. We can take it out. I'm like, great, let's do that. So the next 4 weeks, we were preparing for all the surgery, right? We get everything done, all the tests done that they needed done. And I walk in day of surgery. Doc walks in, head down. I'm like, hey, Doc, we're not doing it today, are we? And he's like, is it that easy to tell? I'm like, Doc, you're a real easy read, And he's like, yeah, we misread all the photos. I'm like, what? Yeah, all the scans are misread. This is wrapped around your portal vein. There's too much vascular interference. We cannot do. Now, the portal vein is the only vein that feeds your liver. So mine had basically a beehive around it, at where the bile ducts come up and split. So we're only talking a few inches of room between my pancreas and this whole area where my cancer's sitting. So, and, Steve Jobs, with all his money, couldn't fix pancreatic. So I was like, okay, what's next step, guys? Not upset, not mad. Like, Doc, what's next? We're going to fast track you for a liver transplant. I'm like, fast track me? How the heck do we fast track a liver transplant? So I'm starting to investigate liver transplants now after they tell you this. I'm like, hey, I'll do it. Whatever's next. So the next 6 weeks, we're prepping for this. And 5 years is the average life expectancy of a liver transplant. Okay. 2 years recovery time. I'm thinking, okay, so 3, because I'm always been a quality of life, not a quantity of it person. Like, I don't want to lay in a bed and die. I want to be that guy that goes out and just lives till he dies, right? Because that's what life is living, And so we start doing this 6 weeks and doing all these crazy things. Like you can have no loose crowns. You can't have any impacted molars, no anything that could cause a infection has to be gone. So they go in and they took out 11 teeth. Like all the backs, anything that was impacted, wisdom teeth, everything at one time. 4 days later, they come back to me and go, hey, guess what? I'm like, what? You no longer qualify because your cancer spread too far for a liver transplant. We didn't need to take your teeth. We're sorry. It's okay. I'm like, wow. I'm like, okay. Wow. So I'm like, what's next? What's the biggest, what are we going to do now? And I'm staying positive through all this because for some reason, I haven't had one sad day in all this. God's graced me with this wonderful gift of the ability to be strong for whatever reason. So they're like, we're going to max out your chemo. we haven't had a patient that's in this good a shape and this long. So we're going to take you to the maximum levels of what we could do. So they put me on 5 different chemo drugs at one time, the maximum dosages. And like you, I went through my hair in a week.
Yeah.
Second session, it was all gone. And I'm like, and take an Italian kid that grew up with a nice head of hair. That's like, Samson's hair being gone. I felt like I was like, oh boy, it's all gone now. I lived in hats. That's all I did. Hats and beanies. And, I did their whole cycle, the first whole cycle of chemo. And I sat down with my docs and I said, okay, what we got? Well, it's not going to cure it. I'm like, okay, is there any cure to it? And they're like, no. So everything else is maintenance. I'm like, okay, we're done with chemo. Chemo would put poison in the body for no reason. I was in the hospital 7 to 10 days out of every month while I was on chemo because you have no immune system. You're basically trapped at home or you're trapped in the hospital bed. I'm watching.
And this started, when was the date?
So we started our treatment, August 1st of last year.
Okay.
So they're going through this whole thing, and we're coming into, November now is finishing up.
Yeah.
And my PET scan in the beginning of December is, hey, we haven't seen a whole lot of growth in this. We're going to try one other thing. We're going to do a radial ablation. I'm like, a radial ablation? What sounds cool? Let's do it. If it's a chance to do something to slow it down? Sure. Now, every 2 months, they got to go in and put stents in my bile ducts. Okay, open them back up. So this is another ERCP. Go down, put these stents in, and this is going on every 2 months. So this early December, put new stents in. I already had them done in September, December. Just had them done again. So it's fun. Right?
Yeah.
You're out for a little bit. You come back and like, hey, doc, I feel like your hands are all over my body, like, just mess with them a little bit. And doc's like, no, they weren't. I'm like, oh, I'm pretty sure, so it's just trying to have fun.
Yeah.
Well, the doc says, hey, we're going to do this radial ablation. They burn the tumor. They go in, they burn it, and then they scrape it out. Well, when they did so, they ended up scraping this and seeding my bloodstream with 2 different bacterias. And so I ended up with sepsis, 105.9 temperature. I'm sitting at home and I'm like, that's fine. Just give me a good cold compress. I'll be all right. He's like, you're 105.9. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. I'll
sleep it off.
Yeah, I'll be fine. No, so they dragged me into the hospital. I ended up in intensive care for a week, getting rid of that. And they did another scan just to check. 3 weeks after the previous one, where they said there was really no growth from August to December, no real growth, small. Well, it went, not only had they seeded my bloodstream, but they seeded my whole liver with the cancer. So in 3 weeks, they'd gone across my liver. And I'm like, well, I guess that didn't work. What's our next step, right?
Yeah.
And so they're like, radiation. So we're going to radiation. So they do, January was radiation month for me, and they did a 7-day process of radiation. Then that maxes you out, especially where you're cooking the liver. So I was coming in with onions every time I do my liver, radiation. They're like, will you stop? I'm like, come on, it's butter smells in here, liver and onions. Come on, guys, this would be great, And they're like, you're being so playful. I'm like, yeah, well, what do you expect me to do? I'm like, I'm being put on a rotisserie. Let me at least have some fun with it. And so we did that. Didn't really have any ill effects from my radiation. Things are looking really good. The next PET scan is on the 23rd, so I'm looking forward to that one. Been taking some alternative stuff that's out there, like some febendazole, which is I hate to say it, dog deworming medicine, but it's working because I have no worms. So, things are, things are going well, right? And, I'm looking forward to the next PET scan because it'll tell me where we're at, right? Mm-hmm. And according to docs and everything, I'm down to 122 days, supposedly, to my, my timeline, you know. So, yeah, January...
Is that number something that it's just updating every time you go in, you're getting a new number each time. And how is that?
January, they said 6 months, January 8th. And for me, I was like, okay, of course that's their best guess based on looking at the size of the tumor growth, where it's at and what mine is. So if you can imagine all your plumbing inside your liver just filling up with cancer, and once that plumbing's completely filled, your liver stops working, functioning. Can't live without a liver. So they're basing it based on an estimated timeline.
Okay.
Me, I look at it as, hey, it is what it is. There's nothing I can change about it. So let me look at it as a positive, and let me see, hey, let's make sure that I have all the stuff done that I need to have done before I go. And that's what I've been working on. And then, when I got this in August, I was like, let me help other people. So I started a charity in August called Dying Defiantly to help other people with terminal illnesses. And that's kind of kept me busy, and trying to do some other things out there before I go, and not just focus on what I call inventorying my life, which is what you do with all your stuff. You're like, okay, it's time to inventory my life. And, and I hid behind that at first, like maybe I'll just, leave it all and not take care of any of it, just put it into a trust and let it all manage itself. And you start to realize, like, wait, that's not fair to the people you're going to leave behind, because they have to take care of properties and they got to take care of all this stuff. And let me take care of some of that stuff before I go. And that's what we've been working on lately. So,
So let's talk about Dying Defiantly. We obviously know why you started it, but tell us about it. What is the mission, if you will?
The mission is, I wanted to share a little bit of whatever God gave me as a strength. And I use God, because I talk about the 3 core values of what this is all about. It's a strong mind, right? You're only as sick as you allow yourself to be every day, right? You choose to either get up out of that bed or you don't, all right? Every day. Strong body, right? Keep yourself working out. Something minor. Even if you're bedridden, you can still put bands at the end of your bed. You can still work out. You can do some kind of movement to keep yourself active. Yeah. Okay? And then a strong faith, right? Whatever your faith might be. If you believe there's something out there, a great energy, whatever, if you think it's God, whatever that person's faith is, that's what it's all about, right? Have faith in something that's bigger than yourself, right? That you can truly make an impact in somebody's life. And that's what I wanted to do. We wanted to make the impact in somebody's life before I went. I wanted people that, I was reading these support groups every day, and I'm like, these people are so sad. They're sad because they're dying. Well, we get the chance to say goodbye. We get that opportunity to do the things that the people that I had a friend 2 days ago have a heart attack, gone, 46 years old, has a 13-year-old son, gone in an instant. He wasn't thinking he's going to die. He didn't have time to say goodbye to anyone. He didn't have time to make sure his family was taken care of properly. If I realized, what I do now, when I was younger, there's some things I probably would have done differently, and, but hindsight's 2020, right? Yeah. And, so I'm in a great place and I'm happy about that, right? And my mission is to make sure I can be that light for somebody else until they can be their own light. Or maybe I'm that voice of reason when there doesn't seem to be a reason, right? Or that ear that's listening when you don't think anyone is. And that's kind of what we're trying to do right now.
Yeah. So what do you hope, do you have like a long-term strategy for this? That sounds...
I do.
I try not to say that, I'm trying to pick my words well, but do you have a strategy for this when you're gone?
We do. And that's what we're working a lot with right now. Some other partners are helping me come together and figure out, where do we go from here? Okay. Once you're gone, my daughter will have some drive to it. Some dear friends, the people that are close to me right now, they'll all have some desire to do this, but I'm putting, a little bit of money away for it to help it run, long term, because I think everybody thinks that, charities just get all these funding and, we don't, right? Everything takes work to make it happen. And so, I'm out here doing everything I possibly can, and I'll leave a nice little endowment to make sure it can run for, at least 3 to 5 years past my time. And, we're making sure that the bylaws are all there that make sure that people aren't just coming in and just taking money out of this foundation and using it for whatever they want, that it's used to help people with end-of-life counseling, family counseling, bereavement counseling for the people that are left behind, which we're seeing a very high rate of suicide. Up to 46% of the survivors now are starting to kill themselves because they feel they have no purpose. Their purpose has gone on, and maybe it's time for them to join them, and so we're doing that. We do free legal with laws for trusts and wills. And, some states are limited, and because we don't have that full coverage yet, but we're working on it. And a lot of people have been helping out. Resounding Joy just recently came in and said, hey, we want to help with musical therapy for some of these people that are in the bereavement stage. And that helps tremendously because we're already at a max capacity with what we currently can do. And I'm starting to get people from these groups from all over the world, Scotland, Ireland, Germany, and I'm like, let me see if I can find somebody in that area to help. Because it's so hard, and there's so many people, and you can only do so much. And I want to try to help everyone. We don't turn anyone away. So some days I'm up late trying to figure out, okay, how can I help this person tonight? How can I, and we're doing 20 to 30 minute sessions now, just because to try to maximize people's time, and counselors are giving us this pro bono. So these people they're listening to all these poor stories, and it's like, if you're an empath or something along these guys, boy, they're taking that pain inside, and it hurts. So
yeah, sure. Yeah. You mentioned the services that you guys provide.
Yeah.
All these services, so you just mentioned the counselors are basically donating their time and their services to this. Same with the attorneys and whatnot. Have you looked at, who is there, like an executive director that's going to take over or run the day-to-day?
Yeah, that's what we're working on right now. I'm not sure if it's going to be my daughter or my significant other at the moment, which will be Angela Horner. And so someone will they know how I would want things done.
Sure.
Right. And then, Synergize here has been a great help, and they're helping me try to put together the board of directors of people that actually care about the same mission, and they want to do some things. Some other gentlemen that I've met, David Craner and a few other gentlemen, we've been talking about working in a process of helping people visualize taking these things out. You've heard of people, I visualized that I was playing a video game and I took my own cancer out that way every night. Me, I visualize as I go to bed, God's hand wiping through my cancer in my liver every night as I say a prayer. And, I try to visualize that. So we're trying to take that into a point where, I don't remember, you're more my age, maybe you might remember the movie Fantastic Voyage, where this medical crew went into this little ship and they shrunk it down and they put it inside the body, and the body would fight it with its white blood cells and all that stuff. But they went to this one point to get this blood clot that was going to kill this patient. And so we're working on a VR where somebody can come in, see themselves shrunk down, and go through the mouth of their own body, right? And they can go in and they can attack their clogged arteries, their cancer, whatever they have, and just to help visualize it mentally for themselves, because the mind is a very powerful tool. We all know that cancer puts up roadblocks, and doesn't allow us through. That's where immunology comes in. So these roadblocks are there. Well, what if you start to break those roadblocks down with your mind? Now, they've got some, I'm going to try, when I get back here on March 30th, a new drug that came out of the Topaz-1 clinical trials that allows those roadblocks to be broken down. So our own immune system can get back and attack the cancer the way it should. So we're looking forward to that. Now, the PET scan is going to tell a lot, right? We're going to see if if any of this mental stuff, any of this FenBen, these alternative stuff that I've been doing will help, right? Has it accomplished anything? And even if it doesn't cure me, it's a path to help somebody else, say, oh, hey, that helped a little bit here, or, if we did a clinical trial and it helps somebody else down the road, I'm all good with that. Look, God will choose to heal me through medicine himself, or he won't choose to heal me at all, and I'm okay with every one of those things. Yeah. I've never had a sad day, and I don't plan on having one. It's okay. Cancer happens. It won't define me.
Yeah. Well, your attitude is pretty remarkable. We talk about attitude a lot on here, and there's no question, excuse me, no question that people's attitudes when they go through this process are a little bit different. Everyone's different. But attitude is very important in taking on the battle. And yours is pretty remarkable, considering the circumstance that you're in. Yeah. It's I admire it for sure. I don't know if I'd have the same ability, but it says a lot about you for sure.
I think attitude is everything, right? We choose, no matter what happens in our lives, we choose to let things affect us either positively or negatively. It's our choice. Yeah. Even when I was at the hospital and I could get out of my bed, the nurses were getting mad at me. They're like, hey, stop. You go back to your bedroom. Because I was popping in. I'm like, hey, what you in for? I got cancer. I'm like, yeah, me too. What do you got? And to me, a little bit of humor, right? So just have some timeline of just laugh a little bit, man. Right. This is so serious. Mm-hmm. Or you sit down when you listen to the doctors talking to some of the other patients, and they're like, they don't know what you just said. You just named off 3 drugs. They don't know what those drugs are. This is an old soldier. Why don't you tell them, hey, this is what your enemy's encampment looks like right now. It's shielded with this. Now, this drug here, this is a 223 round, okay? This drug is a 50 caliber armor piercing round. It's going to get through that shield. It's going to help to break this thing down. If you put it into a perspective and you start talking to these people in a level that they can understand, they'll understand what they're going through, and then everything's easy. And they're not all, the doctors told me all this stuff, and I was like, okay, it sounds great. I went home, did my research, understood everything, and then the next time I came in, I knew everything they were talking about, and then some. What about this? Have you looked at this? Have you looked at this clinical trial yet? Have you looked at this drug that's being done over in Europe? And they're like, okay, somebody's been researching. I'm like, of course. Did you think I was going to sit idly by? I'm like, I probably spend way too many hours researching because there's might be. What if we just missed something, right? Now, I don't sit here and hope for a miracle to happen, right? I'm very, very logical about everything. Hey, if it does, I'll be happy. But if it doesn't, guess what? When you know where you're going, dying is so much easier because you realize death is not just being gone. It's actually living life, eternal. And so for me, I'm very happy with that, right? God, I'll be up there looking down on everybody else going, boy, I missed that show. Thank God I didn't have to stick around for that, there's some craziness in this world today.
Yes, so, for sure. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. We really appreciate it. Hopefully that the attitude that you've got certainly will rub off on us and rub off on all those listening and watching today. Any parting words of wisdom for anyone who's maybe in a similar circumstance?
Yes. Love everyone you meet. Forgive everyone that ever hurt you. And live every day like you're dying, because it's truly no promise of tomorrow. Okay? I promise you this. Don't put off saying, oh, I'll do this when I feel a little bit better. There's not going to be a little bit better, okay? Just do it today. Go do what you want to do today, because you're not going to get that opportunity. And if you put it off, you're never going to do it.
Yeah. Well said. Any questions for us?
I know you went through your own situation.
Sure.
And, obviously something good came out of this. Right, because we're sitting as a product of that today.
Right.
How has it changed you?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. I think the easy, I'll call it the easy answer that's very hard to live up to, but so easy to say, is it changes your perspective of things. You try to appreciate the little things, and my wife would probably give me an eye roll if she heard me say that, but. You do. It doesn't happen as often as it probably should, or as often as we would like. But there's no question that it certainly gives you a different perspective on things. And we all have our moments, for sure. But I think that's the biggest thing, and it kind of goes along with what you just said. Is don't put things off. I've got a second chance right now. It doesn't mean that I'm going to live to see 90. I mean, no one knows that. Something else could happen tomorrow or whatever. But I just don't put things off, like you said, and appreciate the little things. That's probably the biggest thing for me. And I know it's, again, easier said than done, but it's true.
Well, you should be commended on what you're doing, man. I think it's a phenomenal odds, what you guys do, and you're taking something, that really you got hit with, right? It's a punch to the gut. I don't care how you want to look at it,
right?
And you took it and you built this out of it, and what a wonderful legacy for you. And I just hope I get that chance, before I go, is to have a little bit of a legacy that will continue on long past my time, and I'm so blessed to have been, a part of you guys today. And thank you so much for having me in. I can't even thank you so much.
Well, no, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you. And I'd say you're certainly on your way.
Yeah.
I would guess that we both have a common trait of just wanting to do something, not wanting to just receive the news and kind of live idly by that. We want to channel the energy that we're feeling into something, and so that's what we're doing. And I certainly commend you for that, and we appreciate you for being here and sharing your story.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you both. Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
And thanks to all of you guys for listening and watching today. Again, if you happen to be watching through the Heroes YouTube channel and you haven't liked or subscribed, please do so. Also, leave a comment. Leave a comment for Marshall. Let him know how you felt about this episode and any other words you'd like to leave with him. We appreciate you once again, and beat cancer.